Hello and welcome once again to Boomer 11 Live, and we're back with football as we promised. It is a Champions League night, and we had some thrilling games yesterday. A topsy-turvy group of death, as we pretty much expected, and aside from that, a comeback from Barcelona as well. As we speak right now, Man United have finally got their bearings right. 2-0 against Galatasaray. Their demons. I mean, it's not easy to visit Galatasaray and do well in their home ground, but considering how things have been for them, they're fighting for a chance to enter the knockout stage of the Champions League as well. I have with me Abel. Abel, how thrilled are you to see your rivals finally getting something right?
I mean, I would consider it a rival club or something of that sort. But
Is it because they're not doing as well as you? Is it?
no, not really. But to be very honest, this they've gotten off to a very bad start in Champions League, and
Yeah, they have.
their hopes were lying by thread, you can say, in this match.
Absolutely.
And for them to do this away from home because they lost to Galatasaray at their own backyard, had a tough game with Copenhagen. So for them to come back, and even the last game, you saw it in the Premier League as well. The way in which Manchester United have been playing this week, it's been good, and the momentum is in their favor after their international break. Yeah, as I mentioned, there's always a momentum shift which happens with teams post their international break, and I think
Yeah.
it's really working in their own benefit now. That international break which took place, players got to recuperate themselves and come back with fresh mindsets. And as a manager as well, you have to really embed that kind of thought process as well as to how you want to really play in a
Yeah.
certain way.
Yeah, I mean, it is exciting, isn't it, that Man United have scored 2 goals. It's not easy to play well at Rams Park. We know how hostile the home crowd for Galatasaray can be. We've seen, visuals from their rivalry in Turkey itself, and these the ultras of Galatasaray are a proud group, and for them to have now gone 2-0 back, you think Galatasaray will definitely pick up some inspiration from their last game, because it was a very similar situation where they absolutely destroyed Man United after those that initial setback they suffered.
Yeah, I think so. But to be very honest, what Manchester have been doing so far, I believe in the last week's game, right? They've
Yeah.
really managed the game out well. And that's one thing they'd have in their mind as to how do you manage a game, especially in a situation like this where they know these 3 points are worth its weight in gold. Because they've only had 3 points in their last four league games in the Champions League, what I'm talking about. So for them to get a proper win today away from home, that's going to put them in really good stead, and almost out there for qualification, because
Yeah.
until something really drastically goes wrong, I know they have a game against Bayern Munich,
Yeah.
which is going to be hard for sure, but at least that puts them in a better position than what it is. Because if you look at the table as well, I know I'll just display a table soon as well. Table is also almost on that side. If you look at this table,
Yeah.
it's a close table, but it is all going to come down to that particular game, United versus Bayern Munich, because Copenhagen and Galatasaray will play against each other for sure. So for them, it's going to come down to that particular fact that if Copenhagen or Galatasaray wins,
Yeah.
and if Manchester United lose the next match, that's going to put them in so much of trouble as well. Or even if Copenhagen gets a result later tonight, then that's going to be very interesting. But that game is going to really decide where the hopes are going to be. But Manchester United is still not through. So they'll have to win the next two games. So
Yeah.
Bayern Munich is a massive win for them. But I think it'll be an easier Bayern Munich compared, because they might just go easy compared because the last game day and whatnot. That is an opportunity for them, but definitely not an easy thing to travel to Allianz Arena and defeat the United or defeat the Bayern team.
Absolutely, and I'm also you'd have to say that Man United need a draw at least in the next game, and they have to make sure that they win. So they need one win and they need a draw. That's for sure. And I mean, they cannot lose to Galatasaray also because of the fact that if they lose, they end up giving Galatasaray 7 points, and that's the aggregate 7 points,
Yeah.
and that is probably a death blow for them and the Champions League round of 16. Any hopes of getting into round of 16, which is, and you have to also remember, guys, that Bayern are fighting it out in the Bundesliga as well. It's not been easy for them in the past two seasons. Two different teams have challenged them last year. Their classical rivals, Dortmund brought them very close to breaking that streak, and this year it is a surprise. It's Bayern Leverkusen. Xabi Alonso has done a brilliant job there. So you might be right about that sixth game. They might just be okay with a draw and not really throw their weight behind that game. It's probably it's a high profile game, but I think in that sense, looking at the stakes that Bayern Munich have in terms of their Bundesliga matches as well, because it's a matter of pride. We know that Bayern Munich ultras don't like sharing or giving away the Bundesliga trophy. But Alejandro Nacho, let's talk about him once. And we have to, talk about how his development has been brilliant. I mean, just the last game, he scored a bicycle kick. People are already calling it the Puskas Award, winner of 2023-2024 season, so early in it. And he's already scored one in the 11th minute in a very clutch moment for them. For him and being a young lad, how important has this growth been? Considering that he's also, trying to break into the Argentina national squad for the
Yeah.
next Copa America.
Yeah, he was dropped for the recently concluded World Cup qualifiers, which I thought was very surprising. But
Yeah.
I really see Alejandro Garnacho playing in that position of what Di Maria did for Argentina for the longest period of time, and I really see him fit that player profile. But Scaloni, I hope he gets impressed with whatever is happening. Or especially, I hope he follows this very closely with Alejandro Garnacho because he's a talent which you don't let go. He's still in a development stage in his career. He's still very young, and for him to take up the mantle at a very young age and to score big goals for United in a situation where United are really struggling, let's be honest with it. Yeah, United are struggling to find themselves, find an identity for themselves. It's not been the greatest of seasons, but let's also not disregard the fact that they're just 6 points behind the number one position in the league,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
just a couple of points behind top four as well. So
Yeah.
they're very close to getting into that particular zone. And it's not a bad season, though they got off to a disastrous start. But they've been able to get those wins here and there, and they've been very silent as a club. And that's a good thing, often when eyeballs are not in you, and this team
Yeah.
performs really well. And I think that's a good thing for United and this young team. But obviously, the media and hype will always be there the moment United starts doing
Of
well.
course, of
So
course.
it's not going to be easy at all.
Yeah. I mean, another match that's going on is PSV versus Sevilla. And another very important match, you'd have to say, in terms of the context of the Champions League, because PSV are at 6 points right now, and Sevilla at three,
Yeah.
which means the one, especially, if Sevilla has to make a possible chance to get into the round of 16, they have to win this one. Not just that, it's also the Europa League spot, the tournament they love the most. Sevilla, if they need to get there as well, they need a win because Lens are on 5 points in the group as well. In Group B, this is. How do you rate the match that's going on? I mean, they haven't. None of the teams have broken through yet, or they have actually. I think we're getting the news that they've just scored their first goal, and that is Sevilla, who scored. And all of a sudden, now as it stands, able things have shifted. Look at the table. I was just talking about how Sevilla is at the bottom of this table,
Yeah.
which is what you wouldn't expect when you see the names Arsenal, Sevilla, PSV, and Lens.
Yeah.
You'd expect Sevilla to be on at least a second spot. But now this goal, a very important one by Sergio Ramos, of course.
Yeah.
If not for Ronaldo, probably the next Mr. Champions League tag. So you would have to say that this is a very important match for them to be playing at home,
Yeah.
and for Sergio Ramos's redemption arc at Sevilla.
Yeah, truly. And look at that group right now. It's such a well fought and tightly competed group.
Yeah.
Like 3 teams on same amount of points, just goal differences is what spares them all. And I think Sevilla, ideally they like to go back to Europa League. That's what they like doing. But they are fighting for
Yeah,
it.
I
They're
mean, they
fighting
are the Real Madrid of Europa
for
League.
Europa League. No, mind you, and
Yeah.
they've done really well in that league. They've won trophies time and time again. Ideally speaking, they'd like to do that, but let's be honest, going to round of 16 of a Champions League is no small thing.
Yeah.
But it's not yet done, as you know. Anything can happen. It's such a closely competed group. They'll have to win this game. They still have a very fragile lead, in my opinion.
Of course.
Because PSV's had a good season even back in Eredivisie. So PSV can come back. Lens has had a good season. They've already defeated Arsenal once, and if they get a win over there, it's going to be massive today. If Lens go on to defeat Arsenal, then it's going to be a complete paradigm shift in the table because they'll go with 8 points. Then things are going to be slightly different. But if PSV can get a win over here, then things could be slightly. PSV and Lens get a win tonight, but PSV are trailing at this point. Then things can be slightly tricky for Arsenal up top as well because Arsenal will know they have a tough job in the last game day, which is going to be highly under a lot of pressure because Arsenal in European competitions has always struggled with that particular thing of how to handle pressure. So it's not going to be easy for them.
Yeah, and I mean, people are talking about how the group of death. We spoke about PSG, Newcastle yesterday, but this has also been a very exciting group, a very underrated group, I would say. I know Arsenal so far it looks like they're running away with it with 9 points in hand, but as you rightly mentioned, the next 2 matches are going to be the most important ones for Arsenal. They still have to get the job done. and that is going to be where this match and the couple of matches in this group is going to be exciting. But let's talk about the matches that happened yesterday, because let's start with probably the biggest controversy that erupted in the Champions League. Yes, and it was PSG versus Newcastle. Newcastle are throwing their weight behind the Champions League. They haven't really replicated what they did last year in the Premier League, but when it comes to the Champions League, they have really pushed beyond what people expected, isn't it? And yesterday's penalty as well. I mean, what do you think of that?
I thought that was just unfair on a team like Newcastle. To be honest, they did a extremely good job to get the lead and maintain it,
Yeah.
and to give away a penalty like that, and to even call that a penalty, that's very very susceptible or suspected to be saying that you can't call those things penalties because it's touch and go. You're in an era where there's VAR and whatnot.
Yeah.
But sometimes I feel we are really doesn't look at how a football game can be. They look at these minute points, which is not technically foul in a lot of these issues.
Yeah.
Now we have become so sensitive to these kind of things that some of these smaller fouls are called as fouls, which is quite surprising in my opinion. Now, we did have a deliberate discussion on how VAR can impact football, and now we are seeing that translation as to how VAR is affecting football in a negative way. To be very honest, sometimes it's great, but at times you feel like it's just ridiculous
Yeah.
because on human errors and these kind of things can be pulled off, but some of the situation where it can be touch and go, you think you can give the benefit to the defending teams because some of these things which are called as bizarre, in my opinion, last night was a very clear cut example.
Yeah.
Wow, how a bizarre call was made against Newcastle, and that particular thing has really put Newcastle in a serious position now because they had that opportunity. But yeah, even PSG are not yet through. They'll have to defeat Dortmund, who have been really sailing high. So for them to defeat Dortmund and to Newcastle to get a result, I say similar, will really decide where that group goes.
Yeah, I mean, they have got probably the biggest names all put into one group. That is a tough group to get out of. I think any team which gets out of that group will feel like they've achieved something already, at least a sense of pride amongst their players, because
Yeah.
it's been that kind of a group, hasn't it? Let's just talk about PSG and how they have. Do you reckon that Kylian Mbappe misses his Patriots? That is, I mean, his teammates who have left Europe, Messi and Neymar. Do you think that has really affected PSG, because the attack this year is completely revamped? It is Ousmane Dembele who's joined in, and do you reckon that has slightly, earned their chances of being one of the best teams in the Champions League? Because they already have been struggling with that tag of the big money team which has struggled, but now do you reckon it is really beating down on them?
To an extent, yes. So PSG hasn't really looked great in the season, both in Ligue 1 and even in Champions League.
Yeah.
I still think it's early days to say that where they really stand. Maybe at the end of the season, you can see how the season went. Remember, it's a transition period for PSG, and you can give that leeway to them that, okay, there's a new manager, new players, everybody will have to get accustomed to it. But they've not played good enough to say that, oh, we've gotten a lot of signings, but they're not really gotten going. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of issues which they'll have to solve. I think it's a new project in itself at PSG. It's a new way of approaching things. It's not about getting just the big names and putting a load of things in perspective to that. But I think PSG will have to revolve around one player. That is going to be Mbappe for sure. But it's also now about how you convince Mbappe to stay in the future games.
Correct.
If Mbappe can stay, obviously it's going to be great. But if Mbappe doesn't stay, I think things can be slightly more tricky. Maybe it could be blessing in disguise as well. Maybe that pressure also might just go off.
Yeah, I mean, those, as you spoke about Man United as well, the media lens, the media attention that comes with Kylian Mbappe. Maybe if that goes away, it might just give them that little bit of breathing space where they can make their own mistakes. Because Luis Enrique is a decorated manager for sure, and it's not. No one was questioning his credentials. What he's done at Barca, the legacy that he carried forward, is everyone remembers it. But it's obviously a new place for him. Anyway, it is not Barca for sure, and Luis Enrique was accustomed to Barca and its dynamics, and this is still a relatively new big club.
Yeah.
Right? It is not long before that they become challengers to Champions League. So for them, I think that pressure has also come with that big money. But what do you reckon of this? This new setup where they have Kolo Muani, Ousmane Dembele, and Kylian Mbappe starting, and how do you reckon that is different from the previous trio? Probably the most dream trio you could have had in football. Something that really looked straight out of a EAFC career mode, where you have Mbappe, Messi, and Neymar in the starting three, to here. You reckon that has also been a reason for this?
No, I think Mbappe always wanted to play wide. To be very honest, and that's one of the
Yeah,
biggest issues he had with that system. Now, this is a system primarily set out to fit Mbappe into a stable position to start wide on the left hand side of the pitch. But that's what I see. I mean, Kolo Muani is a good player, but how does it translate into a goal scoring list that he possibly can be? I think he's still a player who's not really been there and thereabouts. He's still developing. I still think there's a long way to go for him to call him a prolific striker into that system. So Mbappe is doing that job because in France he had a Griezmann to support him, or for the manager
Giroud
as well
yeah.
there for a long time. Benzema whenever he played, so that was not an issue with Mbappe at all. But in a system like Paris Saint-Germain, I personally feel you need a quality striker, especially when you incorporate in the system. So obviously, the eyeballs are going to be once again on Mbappe,
Absolutely, yeah.
and you have an Asensio, you have an Dembele. It's about how you can put that system into effect. What's the philosophy of Luis Enrique? Yes, he's a manager who goes by the philosophy. It's a manager who demands players to play a certain way. But I still think for him, at least, you need to give a long time for that project to succeed, which I thought Spanish Football Federation did not do, especially with Spain as well. That could have been a successful philosophy, but then there was a lot of criticism in the way in which he selected the team, a lot of criticism on the way they were not getting the right results, and World Cup.
I mean,
was
there's
coming.
also a lot of calls about bias and stuff like that
Yeah,
as well.
so it was never
Yeah.
going to work.
I mean, let's just look at the group F as well now. Dortmund right now on top with 10 points. You've got PSG after yesterday's result at 7. All of them have played 5.
Yeah.
And Newcastle and Milan at 5 each. Now, how do you predict who's going to go into the next 3? Because even Dortmund can just be, brought to the second. I mean, Dortmund have almost qualified, that's for sure now. It doesn't seem likely that they'll end up below 2 because Newcastle with 5 each and AC Milan with 5. The best bet is to go beyond PSG. And I think now PSG are playing Dortmund and Newcastle and Milan are going to play each other. So Newcastle and Milan will have to hope that they win the match and that PSG does not win against Dortmund. So it has been a good season for Dortmund in Champions League, hasn't it? Though?
Yeah, it has been. It has certainly been. I mean, they're top of the group of death. Everybody expected PSG to top the group, but yeah, Dortmund has really done well. They've gotten the right results as well. And even a season where there's no Jude Bellingham, one of the star signings of the previous seasons, I think that's a good positive note for them that they've been able to do well. Not at their best in the Bundesliga, but at least in Champions League so far they've been good. But it's just not about doing well in group stage. Now it's time for them to translate it into the big stage, which is the knockouts, and that's not going to be easy, of course. But for them to do well in a group like this, that's a big boost. It's not like they're finished second in a group like this, or they've really struggled qualifying. They've really dominated 10 points in a group like this and really gotten those right results. And that's going to give them a lot of confidence come the next stages as well. And obviously, when you finish first, you get that extra bit of advantage of facing a number 2 team from other groups as well, who have not been at their best. I think that's a good positive for Dortmund as a club. But as you mentioned, whoever finished number 2 is going to be interesting from here on. Newcastle will be really hoping that PSG goes on to lose to Dortmund, and they have to win against AC Milan. There's no two ways about it. If yesterday they would have gotten those 3 points, they would have been on top of PSG, but it wasn't to be.
Yeah, I mean, another very interesting result that came out today. I think we've got Kapil here. Let's take a few questions. Been waiting for you guys since last 3 days. Good to see you together in the same room like Ronaldo and Messi.
Yeah, we'll be doing more football now because cricket, there's nothing much to talk about this.
Yeah, I mean, and we also kind of need a break from cricket after the.
Yeah, we will talk about cricket as IPL auction comes, but our full focus will be on football. Just want to give you a prior information because I think we've had enough of cricket for 2 months. A lot of cricket for now, more than 2 months rather. So we are going to talk a lot of football, and we will be covering cricket come the IPL auction a week before IPL auction, and we'll be doing not live streams on cricket but podcasts on cricket. So you can watch our pre-record videos usually out.
I mean, thanks Kapil again for joining us, and it's good to see you in the room with me. It's always a pleasure. But let's talk about your favorite, the curlers. Yeah, the Barcelona. They made a very important comeback after Pepe, their old nemesis, opened the scoring for Porto at a home game. And then how twins, how Cancelo and how Felix.
Yeah, we do cover English Premier League. Absolutely.
We will. We definitely will.
We just did 2 days ago.
Absolutely, yeah. Today is just a Champions League night, so we have to win. You can't even win Champions League if you're a football fan. I was just talking about the how twins, making a comeback after Pepe, their old nemesis, open the scoring. Um, would you look at now? If you look at this group as well, it is another very interesting one because Barca right now are on top, but Porto is not behind, and they've also got the number three spot. They are very closely tied to each other. I think Antwerp, by not scoring any points, has helped all three teams. They're still on zero. They've almost. It's pretty much expected for them to
They
end
must have qualified.
on the top below. But yeah, I mean, now they've got Porto and Shakhtar still fighting 9 points each. Which team do you reckon is going to just a bit, slide into that last bit?
I
Yeah,
personally think it could be Porto, but Shakhtar has done extremely well
yeah.
in this Champions League, isn't it? And they've always done well. They've always gotten those
They've
results
always
from
been the
there.
giant killers.
And if you look at the game against Barcelona,
Yeah.
they got that right win at the right time for them. That really shook Barcelona. Yesterday there was a position where you felt like, okay, Barcelona might be in trouble again. But good for them that they pulled out of it. That really requires character because you can be in a position time and time again and you can lose hope.
Yeah.
You've seen that it can become a barrier. Now we talk about Indian cricket team in cricket, to win the ICC trophy. But yeah, it's not about trophies, it's just about qualification in the next group. But yeah, that kind of barrier can be massive and can impact team
Yeah.
for seasons to come. But it's good that they've been able to clear it. First major step. And they played well, obviously losing Gavi for the rest of the season is never
It's
easy for
gonna
the
hurt.
team.
Yeah.
But and also at the same time, they'll be very happy that though Gavi got injured, they'll be happy with the welcoming of Frenkie de Jong and Pedri back into this team because they
Yeah.
missed them for like last 3 months. So for them to come back into the team is going to really galvanize this team a lot more. Then there's a lot of youngsters as well. Fermin Lopez is there, Gundogan was the experienced pro up there, and Lewandowski, of course, and Rafinha.
Yeah.
I think that really forms a good team, to be very honest. But yeah, Gavi's miss is going to be massive because he was like the heart of the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's just cover the rest of the groups just so as quickly as possible. Now we've got Group C, where the team of the Champions League, the one team that you have to beat if you want to do well in Champions League or probably even win it. Group C, Real Madrid, obviously again as expected on top, clearly on top. There's only one thing that could probably go wrong for Napoli is if they end up messing it up with Union Berlin and Braga. They are on 7 points, but Braga aren't far away. So, couple of wins for Braga out of nowhere. They might just get in, but it just seems like it's going to be Napoli and Real Madrid going through. Pretty much what everyone expected.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are no two ways about it. But obviously, it's not Napoli of last season as well.
Yeah.
Because that was a Napoli you would have really loved to have gone against Real Madrid in any of the stages, but it wasn't to be and it isn't to be. But I think Real Madrid again, just as classy as possible, they've been able to get those wins. And I thought the game against Napoli was extremely challenging. They were training in that game away from home. For them to come back into that game and the way they finished that game off, it was wonderful. And once again, it's a return fixture. Napoli was Real Madrid. I think this is where it's going to get really interesting this season. This season, I think it's if you ask me personally, if Real Madrid are the favorite, I would say not yet. But if they can get into the knockouts, you never know because they've been still able to get results. Though they've gotten injuries, they've not had the most fluent seasons as a team. They've still been able to get results. Jude Bellingham has been playing at a whole other level.
Oh, yeah.
They're one of the best clubs in the world for the reason, and
Yeah.
they are usual giant killers. And they are, when they are in their form, they can be an absolute giant killing machine. They can go on a spree. They can go on to win a championship without even you realizing it. So I think the transition obviously has been smooth so far.
Yeah.
But and the biggest one is they've not been affected by injuries at all.
Yeah.
So they've not had a big striker. They've not had a big ticket player. Okay, Jude Bellingham is there, but not the biggest of signings they would have wanted. And they're not making any signings in January either.
Yeah.
So for them to lose Courtois, to go with Kepa, and to lose Vinicius in between, again they've lost Rodrigo. So for them to still manage the season to be second, I think they're top of La Liga as well. So to do that and to top the UCL group, so they've done a phenomenal job so far.
I mean, just an update from the Galatasaray versus Man United match.
Yes,
Hakim Ziyech has scored and made it 2-1. If you're a Man United fan, you'll be really happy that the halftime is very close by and you would want to close it.
But it's a good time for a team to score as well. You go into halftime,
Yeah,
just striking
absolutely.
one goal.
Yeah,
It really gives you a lot more confidence. I think now with fans also, which might get behind them,
absolutely.
it's going to be an interesting game to watch because you saw what happened in Old
Yeah,
Trafford as well,
yeah,
how things went
yeah.
wrong. So If Man United believes they can have to manage the game, if at all things go wrong, it can go drastically wrong. If you look at the Man United's backline, it's not the best of backlines in the world.
Absolutely. Let's go to Group D then very quickly. Real Sociedad again. I mean, very surprising here because I mean this group still has Sociedad. Then they have Inter Milan, RB Salzburg, and Benfica. Teams which have done well traditionally in the mid-table. But now, do you expect Real Sociedad to be at the top of the league by the end of the fourth match, the fourth round of fixtures? I mean, it just seems a little bit of a surprise. I mean, they have played really well, have to give credit to them. But Inter Milan, the kind of slide they've had from last season semi finalists to being second in the group, I think it's going to be a
Even last season, they were second in the group. They just qualified because
yeah.
Barcelona didn't really do well against them. But to be very honest, yeah, that's where you really hope that things can get better for a team like Inter Milan. But it's definitely not the last season. And last season was a great run for a lot of these Italian clubs.
Yeah,
This is just nothing like it, and that's football. To be honest, you get this one season where a lot of things go right, and next season is totally different.
Yeah.
But if you have to be the best team, you keep that consistency factor. And you knew it with Italian football and teams like that. With Napoli, at least you had hope, but then with the manager leaving the team, that hope also went away. So for a team like Inter Milan, they will go to the knockouts, I believe. Though that group is very open at this point. I think Inter and Real Sociedad. I think Sociedad is a beautiful
No,
story.
I think they're almost through with 10 points each.
Yeah.
They've cleared it. I think it's just formalities the next
Yeah.
couple of matches.
I think Real Sociedad has been a phenomenal story in itself.
Yeah.
I mean, the way they played in La Liga so far, and for them to translate that into a European competition. They've been in the Conference Leagues, they've been in the Europa Leagues, but in a Champions League like this, they've got the goods to do it. I mean, they lost one of the major players in Isak last season, and for them to really come back with that and to really put in a performance time in and time again. Zubimendi has been excellent in the middle of the park. I think Sociedad is a team to really watch. Oyarzabal has been good as well for them.
Yeah.
I think they've been a very good team, and they always go unnoticed. Even in La Liga, nobody talks about them enough. But I think they can go possibly a quarterfinal run is possibility if things go well even deeper.
You would say they could be the story of the season?
Early to say, but I have to see how the round of 16 goes through. If they can pull it off in a knockout, then you never know. Then because once it's the knockout football, anything is possible. To be very honest, because you have to manage the game a lot better.
Yeah.
You can use your home support, get a couple of goals, but you don't have a home ground. You don't have the away goal advantage, unfortunately, for teams like this to really have the deep run, which was a big factor for smaller teams in doing well.
Yeah.
One of the major reasons why a lot of stories were made in 2018, 19. If you look at the last one
Roma
decade,
was Barca, for example,
that was one of it. I mean, if you look at multiple instances, like Chelsea in 2012, a lot of these clubs had something behind them, which was basically the away goal advantage.
Yeah.
Sorry, they've gone to win the Champions League, but the runs is what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
For the matter, even Monaco, when they went on to have a dream run till semi-final, they had their own ground, that advantage. Or it should be like a one-leg competition, which was in 2020 for that matter, where you saw teams like Leipzig, Lyon, and all these teams really have
empty stadiums though. But
either way, that is one way of helping the smaller teams do well. But as I mentioned, when a two-leg competition with no away goals, it's very early to predict who will do well. So far, Real Sociedad has had a decent season, even La Liga, I believe. But it'll all come down to that particular moment, in my opinion. Atletico Madrid is a team which nobody's talking about.
Group E and Group, I think G are pretty much settled.
Yeah.
With Atletico and Lazio 11 and 10, clear of Feyenoord and Celtic, who are on 6 and 1.
Yeah.
Pretty much sorted. And then you have again Group G, Man City, on a title running defensive, been unbeaten. I know they're facing RB Leipzig, but the RB Leipzig ran them close yesterday. 3-2 result. I think Man City fans would have expected a lot more smoother one. But having said that, again, both the teams pretty much through. Young boys at 4, there's no threat to either of their positions. So I think these are groups that are decided. I think right now what we have the eyes on is obviously Group H, who's going to be the second team. Group F, anyone can still qualify. Yeah. And then you've got, I think aside from that, Group B and Group A are the teams that are still, you would say, you can't really predict who are the top two. So, but that's pretty much it from us for today. Thank you guys for joining us. And we just want to say, it's going to be an exciting run of Champions League football and a lot more on the football side.
Joining you if possible post the game tonight.
Absolutely, yeah. And, it just looks like it's going to be an interesting couple of matches because there are a lot riding on these two matches for both all four teams who are playing.
Yeah,
But thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Abel, and make sure you guys check out the Boom 11 app because
absolutely.
it's free of cost. So just go ahead and make your team. You can experiment because there's nothing to lose, and when there's nothing to lose, there's lots to win. That's how it
Absolutely.
works.
Absolutely. Have a good night, all of you. See you all very soon. Bye bye.